Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alex Cuesta Daily Show. How is everybody doing out there on this Tuesday, May 3rd of 2022? Before we get into any of the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth if you like the show, and also go find us on socials. Just go search the Alex Cuesta Show. Should show up anywhere that you're looking for it. Got a lot to get through today, so we are going to get through it. Let's jump right in first to the Biden COVID tracker, because there's some interesting developments going on there and some numbers that I'm going to talk about. So yesterday, the 2nd, we had 81,325,716 cases and 993,588 deaths. On today, the 3rd, we have 81,402,866 cases. That's an uptick of 77,150. In terms of deaths, we have no change. So what does this say? I've said in the past that, it might be a statistical anomaly. They are going slow on recording it. But what does it really mean? This has happened a lot over the past month. And what it's telling me is we're not dealing with the deadly version of the coronavirus right now. It is not deadly. It's not what they fearmonger. It's not what they continue to say about it anymore. We're just not. We're out of the pandemic phase. I've said that a ton of times. We are in the endemic phase. But it has to be concerning when your politicians, when your bureaucrats refuse to give up unconstitutional power. The Pandemic Emergency Powers Act is not a constitutional thing. It's extra constitutional. So it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be around. It shouldn't be a thing. And they should give it up because it's right time. But overall, I'm doing this, as I always say, because, man, we got to hold this man accountable. We had all the trackers and tickers on at the beginning of the pandemic, and rightfully so. We all want to know about it. But now that they haven't given up power, we have to hold them to account, especially Joe Biden. So that's why I continue to do this. He was the man with no plan. He's had a shitty presidency so far. And hopefully November, he and his whole entire party will pay for it. And we won't get Rhino Republicans in. We'll get some real right-wing people that will actually do some good for the country and end this Marxist bullshit wave that we have had lately. So let's jump into the article, one of the articles that I have. We're not going to actually go through it. It's one of my little honorable mentions I like to do right away. It's an article from CNN Business by Anaken, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Anaken Tapi. A record 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in March. This can't be. After all we hear about how great the economy is, this cannot be. Now, CNN, props to you. You lead with the correct headline that the jobs have been lost. They go in here to talk about how the quit rates moved up 3%, not a level seen since December 2021, when we were in the height of the pandemic. That the job losses rose to 11.5 million. And with 4.5 million people quitting, there's 11.5 million openings now. That's a nice jump up there. There's a lot going on that's bad. That there's a lot of job openings per person, 1.9 job openings for every unemployed worker. So, and where it's been hit, let me see, I got to find the places that have been hit the worst have been, let me skip through this thing. One of them was my field in construction, which I'm not surprised with. I got to find the line here because I did read it. Contrary to popular belief on this type of stuff, I do read these things before I go out to put them out. But anyway, man, I lost it. I can't find it. I should have actually made a note exactly what it was, but that's just bad radio. This is bad podcasting right now. I'm sorry for this bad podcasting moment that I have. But overall, it did say somewhere in here that construction is one of the spots that were hard hit, along with government jobs and all that type of stuff. So it's been bad. It's been bad. They try to make this look good. They find a economist that says that the fact that people are quitting but then can find jobs right away just shows that we have a healthy economy. It's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard in my life. It's dumb. People are quitting, but then they can find jobs quickly. That's a good thing. That shows that we're coming up. No, it's terrible. This is not a good job market. The policies have not helped. Nothing that Joe Biden has done has helped our economy get any better. He touts his numbers, but it's by default. Last time I checked, they were 10 million away from being to pre-pandemic levels. I might recrunch the numbers with jobs reports and see how far we are away from being pre-pandemic level, because it's really bad. And this economy is not roaring back. It's not as good as they say it is. And we see it. You talk to anybody, they are struggling. Any of your middle class, poor people, everybody in that level is struggling. And even your borderline wealthy people are struggling because it is a bad time in America. And it's not because of Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't help. The Ukraine-Russia war does not help. I'll concede that. But this was going on well beforehand, well before. And there's a lot of conspiracy to go around as of why. I'm not going to play into that. But also, another thing to add, last month, I saw that the stock market fell 8.8%, one of the lowest points in recent history. It's really bad. It's not a good thing lately. We are not in a good spot as a country. November can't come quick enough where we hopefully stymie all the bullshit going on and make this man, if he wants to start putting in his policies, then he's going to have to expose himself as an authoritarian and a dictator through executive order, which I hope he does, because then that will expose just what the left is all about, authoritarianism. So speaking of ridiculousness on the left, let's get to the article at hand. Bombshell. A bombshell article dropped on today. And actually, no, it dropped yesterday. It was updated today, but it was dropped yesterday on the 2nd. And it's by Josh Gerstein and Alexander Ward from Politico. Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights. Draft opinion shows. What a terrible headline. What a fucking terrible headline. You lead with Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights, and then draft opinion shows. That should be reversed, number one. That is meant to sit there and get not only eyes to it, but to create outrage on the left. And it's working because the left, people on the left are stupid. So they get outraged at the dumbest shit, like the Don't Say Gay bill and all that things. They're dumb people. They read headlines and then they don't care. And they just get told what to believe. And don't get me wrong, plenty of morons on the right like that, but a lot less, I would like to say, on the right. And the sad thing is the left likes to tout themselves as these big academics and intelligent people. They're the worst fucking sheep around. But that's the headline, extremely misleading. And let's get into it. It's a little bit of a long article, so let's get right into it. I'm probably not going to stop at every paragraph because I want to read it, but let's go. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico. Again, leading with a terrible, terrible line, making it seem like this vote is already done, deal, set, and sealed. This is bad journalism. This is really bad journalism. And this is why people make fun of journalists, because that is not at all what has occurred. They talk about it. If you read more than just the paragraph in the first paragraph in the headline, you get a little more insight into it. But this is just bad. This is not gripping, leading stuff. This is misleading. And you would wonder if the disinformation Ministry of Truth would come after something like this that Biden started. Absolutely won't, because they appreciate this because it's on their side, but it's fucking stupid. Let's keep going. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained that right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes, in the document labeled as the opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. So again, they quote from it. He finally says it's a draft opinion. So right from there, this is something that is, you'll read, this is apparently done. Let's get more into the article, because it kind of infuriates me that this is the reason why people hate journalists right now. It's because they're liars and they mislead people and they dig the real shit into the middle of the article while misleading with nonsense. And people might say this is always how it's been done to get eyes. And if that's the case, then journalism needs to go away and get revamped. Let's keep going. Deliberations on controversial cases in the past have been fluid. Justices and sometimes can and sometimes do change their votes as draft opinions circulate, and major decisions can be subject to multiple drafts and voting trading. Sometimes until just days before the decision is unveiled, the court's holding will not be final until it is published, likely in the next 2 months. So right there, that's the way it should have been led with. That fourth article, that fourth paragraph right there. Justices can and do sometimes change their votes. That is factual. We are 2 months away from the actual decision. Also factual. These things are fluid. So this article shouldn't have been written as a definitive. And they're making it as a definitive. And there's a reason why they're writing it like this. I'll talk about that more towards the end. Let's continue. The immediate impact of the ruling as drafted in February, and we're hearing about it today, would be to end a half-century guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion rights and allow each state to decide whether to restrict or ban abortion. It's unclear if there have been subsequent changes to the draft. No draft decision in the modern history of the court has been disclosed publicly while the case was still pending. The unprecedented revelation is bound to intensify the debate over what has already been the most controversial case on the docket this term. So right there in those two paragraphs. Number one, this was obtained in February. We are now sitting at the beginning of May. So 2 full months in between with deliberations and them definitely talking about this after the final hearings. So this is much ado about nothing. We have no idea. We probably know where Justice Alito, Justice Coney Barrett, Justice Clarence Thomas, certainly those three all sit, and even Justice Gorsuch probably, those four probably all sit on the side of overturning Roe v. Wade. That's just where they sit. That's how they roll. Justice Kavanaugh and Roberts are completely different. We don't know where they sit as quote unquote right-leaning justices. So you only have 4 concrete justices on this case. I wouldn't be surprised if Kavanaugh and Roberts both go over to the left. They really might. And who knows? Kavanaugh voted with the Republicans on this. I think it was 5-3. Roberts didn't participate in the vote. But you don't know where they go. So, and again, that the fact that none of this has ever been disclosed while it's still pending is because this was designed to try and either get Roberts to be popular and vote against this, and to get Kavanaugh to sway. Because those are the two guys. They're trying to intimidate Kavanaugh and Roberts. That's the only reason they let this out. And the person that revealed this should be jailed. They should be jailed. The internal deliberations of the highest court in the land should not be unleashed and open. And I know people online are like, oh, people are more angry at the fact that it got leaked and not about the content. Well, number one, because I don't disagree with the content per se. This is dealing with the bill in Mississippi that bans abortion after 15 weeks viability. I don't necessarily disagree with that decision. So if you disagree with that, if you agree with the decision, you're more annoyed at the fact that once again, something is being leaked in order to benefit the left. And this is activism. We're looking at activism. We're not looking at jurisprudence. We're not looking at law. We're not looking at anything else. We are looking at activism. And that is terrible. That is terrible. Let's keep going. The draft opinion offers an extraordinary window into the justices' deliberations in one of the most consequential cases before the court in the last 5 decades. Some court watchers predicted that the conservative majority would slice away at abortion rights without flatly overturning the 49-year-old president. The draft shows that the court is looking to reject Roe's logic and legal protections, which is, again, within their right to do. Is within their right to do as a court. There's a quote here from Justice Samuel Alito from his writing here. It's all in bold. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences. And far from bringing about a national settlement of the abortion issue, Roe and Casey have inflamed debate and deepened division. There is no lie there. There is no lie, whether you agree with it or not. Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey have not settled the issue on abortion like people think they do if you just make national rules. Let's keep going. A person familiar with the court's deliberation said that 4 of the other Republican appointed justices, Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, had voted with Alito in the conference held among the justices after hearing the oral arguments in December. And that lineup remains unchanged as of this week, which is, we don't know that. That is a person familiar with court's deliberations. You might think that that's a little more true since they got this leaked than it could be. And that person needs to be found out. Stop leaking. Like, it's so fucking terrible. Stop leaking. And it's so bad that we have all these activists in there doing this type of shit. And people think, like Alexander Vindman, who was the leaker with Trump to get all the nonsense with the impeachment going. And honestly, people have said that there was nothing wrong with the call. And he's sitting there trying to, he should go to jail for lying under oath, saying that he wasn't the leaker. I digress. That's off on the other side. Let's keep going. The three Democratic appointed justices, Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan, are working on one or more dissents according to the person. How Justice Chief Roberts will ultimately vote and whether he will join the already written opinion or draft his own is unclear. Now, this is something that Roberts does because Justice Roberts, is a shitty justice. He's terrible. If he knows it will end 5-3 and that those five are going to stay locked in, I guarantee he votes with the dissent. He's going to vote with the Democrats. Want to know why? Because John Roberts gives a shit more about how he looked at in Washington than actually doing his job. He's a bad justice. He's one of the worst chief justices we've had in a long time. And I mean, I guess in my lifetime, he's been my main chief justice. He's been fucking terrible. Let's keep going. The document labeled as a first draft of the majority opinion includes a notation that it was circulated among the justices on February 10th. If the Alito draft is adopted, it would rule in favor of Mississippi in a closely watched case over the state's attempt to ban most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Now, let's remind you that we heard about this case. We heard about them questioning, and we actually heard Justice Roberts with some of his questioning when this was going on. And Justice Roberts brought up that this length of time, this is considered viability by most people in the scientific community. And this number is more consistent with European nations who have even more strict rules about abortion most of the time. And some of them out and out ban abortion. So the party of the left, which always says we need to be more like Europe in so many ways, when we want to be more like Europe, they're like, don't be like them. That's bigoted. So can't please these people. Let's keep going here. On Tuesday, after this article was published, Roberts confirmed the authenticity of the draft opinion and said he was ordering an investigation into the disclosure, which he shouldn't have even confirmed. That's terrible of him to confirm. He should have told Politico to fuck off. Let's keep going. To the extent this betrayal of the confidences of the court was intended to undermine the integrity of our operations, it will not succeed. The work of the court will not be affected in any way. Roberts pledged in a written statement. This was a singular and egregious breach of the trust that is an affront to the court and the community of public servants who work here. And I agree with that sentiment. That should never happen. And they should investigate, find this individual, fire them, and jail them. Because this is bad. This should not happen. Let's keep going. Roberts also stressed that the draft opinion does not represent a decision by the court or a final position of any member on the issues in the case. The court spokesperson has declined comment pre-publication. So let's go here because that's correct also what Roberts says. This is an exercise that the courts do in order to sit there and hash out their positions. And I think they talk about that a little more in here, so I don't want to talk too much. Let's keep going. Politico received a copy of the draft opinion from a person familiar with the court proceedings in the Mississippi case, along with other details supporting the authenticity of the document. The draft opinion runs 98 pages, including a 31-page appendix of historical state abortion laws. The document is replete with citations to previous court decisions, books, and other authorities, and include 118 footnotes. The appearances and timing of this draft are consistent with court practice. Now, here we go. Let's talk about, they're going to go into court practice. As you read the Political article, you realize that this is much ado about nothing. They're trying to make this concrete. They're trying to intimidate justices to switch their vote to try and get with the leftist theory. That's all this is for. This is intimidation. It's a terrible tactic. Let's keep going. The disclosure of Alito's draft majority opinion, a rare breach of Supreme Court secrecy and tradition around its deliberations, and a unprecedented and unhappening one when it's actually doing it. They talked about this earlier. Comes as all sides in the abortion debate are girding for the ruling. Speculation about the looming decision has been intense since the December oral arguments indicated a majority was inclined to support the Mississippi law. Under longstanding court procedures, justices hold preliminary votes on cases shortly after argument and assign a member of the majority to write a draft court's opinion. The draft is often amended in consultation with other justices, and in some cases, the justices change their votes altogether, creating the possibility that the current alignment on Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization could change. That is the most important paragraph in the whole entire thing. Fuck the whole entire article. That's the most important one. It does this court precedent. Justice Alito's draft opinion is meant to be an exercise to hash out why his opinion and the other four justices that did a mock, basically this is a mock vote, that did the mock vote, have it. Now, Justice Alito, Justice Kagan, Justice Sotomayor are all going to get the chance to vote as well. Let's say Justice Kagan, Justice Sotomayor, and Justice Breyer, they're going to get the chance to all write their own dissent. Whether they do individuals, they do it as a unit, and Justice Roberts might write his own piece. This is all meant for them to hash things out so they can make their votes, they can make their final decisions. This is an exercise that people are making out to be a sold, done decision. Now, again, do I bet that Alito, Clarence Thomas, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch change their vote? I don't. This is meant for Kavanaugh, and this is meant for Roberts. Breyer, Kagan, and Sotomayor are also staying where they are. They're also staying in the dissent. The activist judges, leftists, are going to stay as activist leftists. But we shall see. Let's keep going. The Chief Justice typically assigns majority opinions when he is in the majority. When he is not, that decision is typically made by the most senior justice on the majority. There's a little subheadline, exceptionally weak. A George W. Bush appointee who joined the court in 2006, Alito argues the 1973 abortion rights ruling was an ill-conceived and deeply flawed decision that invented a right mentioned nowhere in the Constitution and unwisely sought to wrench a contentious issue away from the political branches of government. Alito's draft ruling would overturn a decision by the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that found the Mississippi law ran afoul of Supreme Court precedent by seeking to effectively ban abortions before viability. Roe's survey of history ranged from the constitutionality irrelevant to the plain. Hold on. Let me start there. Roe's survey of history ranged from the constitutionality irrelevant to the plainly incorrect. Alito continues, adding that its reasoning was exceptionally weak and that the original decision had damaging consequences. Sorry, reading some of the more legalish jargon is not super easy. The inescapable conclusion is that the right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions, Alito writes, and that is true. All these things that he's writing are true. He's not writing anything incorrect. Abortion is not part of our history. It maybe has been done, but it's not something that we were ever happy about until recently when people shout their abortions. People actually are proud of killing their fucking potential kids, which is terrible. You're a bad person. You're an actually bad person if you're proud of your abortion. I get it. People get them, and there's a lot of people who are ashamed or it's hurt mentally. It's hurt them emotionally. It's unfortunate, and it sucks. And I feel for those people. Anybody that shouts their abortion or is proud of their abortion can fuck off. Any and all. Let's keep going. Alito approvingly quotes a broad range of critics of the Roe decision. He also points to liberal icons such as late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe, who at certain points of their careers took issue with the reasoning in Roe and its impact in the political process. They didn't quote any of those reasonings here, so I can't actually talk about them. You can go look them up if you want to. Alito's skewering of Roe and the endorsement of at least four other justices for the unsparing Politico is also a measure of the court's right-wing turn in recent decades. Roe was decided 7-2 in 1973, with 5 Republican appointees joining 2 justices nominated by Democratic presidents. The overturning of Roe would almost immediately lead to stricter limits on abortion access in large swaths of the South and Midwest, with about half of the states set to immediately impose broad abortion bans. Any state could still legally allow the procedure. So again, what this would do is bring this issue back to the states. It would take away the federal statute on a social issue, and it would bring it back to the states. Now, whether or not you agree with that state's handling of it is up to you. And, you know, if you're a person that wants to get government out, if you're a big government person, you want this to be a thing. If you're a person that wants to mostly get government out of healthcare and out of your body, this is a good start. This is a good start right here. And who knows? If they ban shit in the South, then that's up to them. But federally imposing it, I don't know. I'm not up for any federal impositions against any social issues. That's just me. Government needs to get the fuck out. Let's continue. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion, the draft concludes. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. We now overrule those decisions and return the authority to the people and their elected representatives. And again, this is also something. They created a statute via the court. They created basically a rule and a law via the court. There is no legislation on this. And that's not what the court is designed to do. The court is not designed to create laws. The court is designed to interpret them. That's what they're there for. Let's keep going. The draft contains a type of caustic rhetorical flourishes Alito is known for, and that has caused Roberts, his fellow Bush appointee, to some discomfort in the past. So that's opinion. This is now an opinion piece. Type of caustic rhetorical flourishes Alito is known for. That's opinion. Okay. So this is now officially stopped being a news piece, and this is now an opinion piece. This is now an analysis and an opinion piece by Politico. Please, Politico, relabel this. If you have it labeled in the news, it is officially analysis. The writer, one or two of them, has added their opinion. Let's keep going. At times, the Alito draft opinion takes the most mocking tone as it skewers a majority opinion in Roe, written by Justice Harry Blackmun, Richard Nixon appointee who died in 1999. Again, opinion. Almost mocking tone, opinion. So again, this is an opinion piece, everybody. This is analysis. This isn't news. And I don't know if it's labeled as that. I hope it's not labeled as news because it isn't. Quote, Roe expressed the feeling that the 14th Amendment was the provision that did the work, but its message seemed to be that the abortion right could be found somewhere in the Constitution, and that specifying its exact location was not of paramount importance, Alito writes. Alito declares that one of the central tenets of Roe, the viability distinction between fetuses not capable of living outside the womb and those which can, makes no sense. And again, he's right. He's right. Because here's the deal. No infant can live outside the womb. That is the dumbest argument I ever heard in my life. That, it has its own, it can live on its own. Fuck you. It can't live on its own. Name me a single infant that is born that you can just leave there and it will survive. That argument is the worst argument that any person in favor of abortion has, because there isn't a single, humans are not capable of being born and just starting right up. We need to be nourished, we need to be raised, and we need to be taught. Or otherwise we die. Infants die rather quickly if they are neglected. So it really does make no sense. Alito was completely right there. And the fact that it is an interpretation into the Constitution and not actually constitutional, that's also in the feather in Alito's hat, and anyone that likes the Constitution. If abortion is that important, then get an amendment written. If you want to make it law, get an amendment. That's just how this kind of works, everybody. And people that don't like the way it works constantly want everything to be done by the court or executive order. Let's keep going. In several passages, he describes doctors and nurses who terminate pregnancies as abortionists. Correct statement. When Roberts voted with liberal jurists in 2010 to block the Louisiana law imposing heavier regulations on abortion clinics, his solo concurrence used the more neutral term abortion providers. In contrast, Justice Carter Thomas used the word abortionist 25 times in a solo dissent in the same case. I mean, they're just arguing semantics here. They don't like the label abortionist because they like to create the labels on the left. They don't like to be labeled. So thank you, Justice Thomas and Justice Alito, because it's about time that these groomers and these people that are abortionists get called what they are. Let's keep going. Alito's use of the phrase egregiously wrong to describe Roe echoes language Mississippi Solicitor Governor Scott Stewart used in December in defending his state's ban on abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The phrase was also contained in an opinion Kavanaugh wrote as a part of a 2020 ruling that jury convictions in criminal cases must be unanimous. In that opinion, Kavanaugh labeled two well-known Supreme Court decisions egregiously wrong when decided. The 1944 ruling upholding the detention of Japanese Americans during World War II, Korematsu v. United States, and the 1896 decision that blessed racial segregation under the rubric of separate but equal, Plessy v. Ferguson. The High Court has never formally overturned Korematsu, but did repudiate the decision in a 2018 ruling by Roberts that upheld then President Donald Trump's travel ban policy. So let's unpack what went wrong there. What went wrong? What is there? It is egregious. The egregiously wrong term. I like how they kind of flesh out where it came from. And they like to say that, they use this because of that. Maybe he just wrote it because that's how he feels. Who knows? There may be more truth that he used the same language as Mississippi Solicitor General Scott Stewart, because it is dealing with that exact case. I think going back to Kavanaugh's thing is reaching and kind of stupid, but I think that's kind of in a more thing. And did you notice that this is the first time they mentioned that what the Mississippi case is? This is now I'm almost into the third part of the story, and this is when they decide to mention that it's an opinion that the state's ban on abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. This is when they mention it. They talk about it as a ban of Times, changing Roe v. Wade, and this and that. This is the first time they actually mention what it is. All right, this is the last little subheader here, the legacy of Plessy v. Ferguson. Plessy remained the law of the land until for nearly 6 decades, until the court overturned it with the Brown v. Board of Education school desegregation ruling of 1954. Quoting Kavanaugh, Alito writes of Plessy, it was egregiously wrong on the day it was decided. So again, quoting Kavanaugh, they're giving credit to Kavanaugh for Alito's writings. You think Alito has to quote Kavanaugh? These people are insane. Alito's draft opinion includes, in small type, a list of about 2 pages worth of decisions in which the justices overruled prior precedents, in many instances, reaching results praised by liberals. The implication that allowing states to outlaw abortion is on par with ending legal racial segregation has been hotly disputed. But the comparison underscores the conservative justices' belief that Roe is so flawed that the justices should disregard their usual hesitations about overturning precedent and wholeheartedly renounce it. Alito's draft opinion ventures even further into this racially sensitive territory by observing in a footnote that some early proponents of abortion rights also had unsavory views in favor of eugenics. And it's funny, Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist. She started Planned Parenthood. She was a racist and a eugenicist, and it's a known fact now that she designed to put Planned Parenthood in Black neighborhoods to get rid of Black kids because she hated Black people. And that's who they support. That's who they support. That's what they like. That's what they want. And also, let's remind you, the group of people on the party and the side of the aisle, the right, are the ones that wanted to end segregation. So by comparing a decision that conservatives and people on the right were in favor of to another position that conservatives and people on the right are in favor of is not a reach. Yes, they are completely different, but they believe that they are both wrong on the same level. It was the leftists who liked segregation. Let's keep that in mind. Let's tally that up and keep that in mind. It's also the leftists that were eugenicists. Let's all keep this in mind here of who's right and who's wrong, period. Right and wrong in this situation. Let's keep going. Some such supporters have been motivated by desire to suppress the size of the African-American population, Alito writes. It is beyond dispute that Roe has had a demographic effect. A highly disproportionate percentages of aborted fetuses are Black, and we should include a highly disproportionate of the plots and span of the places Planned Parenthood is put in is inner cities. I put that in myself. Alito didn't write that. Alito writes that by raising the point, he isn't casting aspirations on anyone. For our part, we do not question the motives of either those who have supported and those who have opposed laws restricting abortion, he writes. Alito also addresses concern about the impact the decision could have on public discourse. We cannot allow our decisions to be affected by any extraneous influences, such as concern about the public's reaction to our work, Alito writes. We do not pretend to know how our political system or society will respond to today's decision overruling Roe and Casey. And even if we could foresee what will happen, we would have no authority to let that knowledge influence our decision. But I will say this, unfortunately, this leak is designed to influence those who might be on the fence, and it probably is going to influence Kavanaugh and Roberts, because that's what this is designed to do. Those are the 2 weak links in this discussion. And it's what it's designed to do. We shall see. Let's keep going. In the main opinion in the 1992 Casey decision, Justices Sandra Day O'Connor, Anthony Kennedy, and Davis Souter warned that the court would pay a terrible price for overruling Roe, despite criticism of the decision from some in the public and legal community. While it has endangered disapproval, it has not been unworkable, the three justices wrote then. An entire generation has come of age free to assume Roe's concept of liberty in defining the capacity of women to act in society and to make reproductive decisions. No erosion of principle going to liberty or personal autonomy has left Roe's central holding a doctrinal remnant. When Dobbs was argued in December, Roberts seemed out of sync with the other conservative justices, and he has been in a number of cases, including one challenging the Affordable Care Act. Again, Justice Roberts is terrible. Let's keep going. At the argument session last fall, Roberts seemed to be searching for a way to uphold Mississippi's 15-week ban without completely abandoning Roe's framework. Viability, it seems to me, doesn't have anything to do with choice. But if it is really about choice, then why is 15 weeks not enough time? Roberts asked during the arguments. The thing that is at issue before us today is 15 weeks. There's a good amount left here. So let's just trudge right through. All right. All righty. Not to conservative colleagues. While Alito's draft opinion doesn't cater much to Roberts' views, portions of it seem intended to address specific interests of other justices. One passage argues that social attitudes toward out-of-wedlock pregnancies have changed drastically since the 1970s, and that increased demand for adoption makes abortion less necessary. Those points dovetail with issues that Barrett, a Trump appointee and the court's newest member, raised at the December arguments. She suggested laws allowing people to surrender newborn babies on a no-question-asked basis means carrying a pregnancy to term doesn't oblige one to engage in child rearing. Why don't the safe haven laws take care of that problem? Asked Barrett, who adopted 2 of her 7 children. So again, Barrett is advocating for adoption because she has adopted kids. She has experience and she thinks it's a better way. I think that's a good reasoning. Much of Alito's draft is devoted to arguing that widespread criminalization of abortion during the 19th and early 20th century belies the notion that a right to abortion is implied in the Constitution. I would like to argue a little bit there that because it was argued then doesn't mean it's correct now, and that's really where they're going to go as well. But I think that's meant to be said. But he has, precedent is part of it. And court cases are part of it. And he's doing his job as a justice to bring this type of stuff up. Let's keep going. The conservative justice attached to his draft a 31-page appendix listing laws passed to criminalize abortion during that period. Alito claims an unbroken tradition of prohibiting abortion on pain of criminal punishment from the earliest days of common law until 1973. Until the latter part of the 20th century, there were no support in American law for the constitutional right to obtain an abortion. Zero, none. No state constitutional provision had been recognized such a right, Alito adds. Alito's draft argues that rights protected by the Constitution, but not explicitly mentioned in it, so-called enumerable rights, must be strongly rooted in U.S. history and tradition. That form of analysis seems at odds with several of the court's recent decisions, including many of its rulings backing gay rights. Here's another quote from the draft. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision. Liberal justices seem likely to take issue with Alito's assertion in the draft opinion that overturning Roe would not jeopardize other rights the courts have grounded in privacy, such as the right to contraception, to engage in private consensual sexual activity, and to marry someone of the same sex. So, of course, they're going to intersection here. Telling somebody you can't get an abortion won't strike away privacy rights. There's still HIPAA. There's still a lot of the other stuff. That's not true. It's not going to hurt that. The right to contraception, that's also asinine. That's basically saying that we're a religious society and we're going to go against contraception, blah, 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 blah. That's not going to happen. So they have 2 bad arguments. Engage in private consensual sexual activity. Again, they're just bringing up shit that's not relevant. Bringing up things that are not relevant. Marry somebody of the same sex. Again, not relevant. None of that stuff is relevant to this case. And they're going to bring it up because they know it's not relevant, but it pulls at heartstrings. Let's keep going. We emphasize that our decision concerns a constitutional right to abortion and no other right, Alito writes. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. Alito's draft opinion rejects the idea that abortion bans reflect the subjugation of women in American society. Women are not without electoral political power, he writes. The percentage of women who register to vote and cast ballots is consistently higher than the percentage of men who do so. The Supreme Court remains one of Washington's most secretive institutions, priding itself on protecting the confidentiality of its internal deliberations, as it should. The Supreme Court's the highest court of the land. These leaks should not happen. They should be secretive. We should not know. Like any other court, the deliberations are secretive, so there shouldn't be any outside sway. Let's keep going here. At the Supreme Court, those who know don't talk, and those who talk don't know. Ginsburg was fond of saying, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The tight-lipped reputation has eroded somewhat in recent decades due to a series of books by law clerks, law professors, and investigative journalists. Some of these authors clearly had access to draft opinions, such as the one obtained by Politico, but their books emerged well after these cases in question were resolved. The justices held their final arguments of the current term on Wednesday. The court had a series of sessions over the next 2 months to release rulings in the still unresolved cases, including the Mississippi abortion case. That ends this article. Bottom line, I said it over and over. All this is here to do is to try and sway Kavanaugh and Roberts. And this is much ado about nothing. This is a common practice and exercise in the Supreme Court to try and hash out where all the justices are going to stand on a big case. It is wrong for this leak. The person that leaked it should go to jail, should lose their job, and they should go to jail. There should be jail time for something like this, because this is important. This is a big deal. But overall, just super disappointing that it's being taken the way it is, because it is much to do about nothing. But it's a big deal. So I want to talk about it. And I want to read to you the whole article so you don't have to, number one, read it yourself. And number two, because it's important that we read their words and don't just look at headlines, because there's a lot of things in there that basically tell you that this is much ado about nothing. So overall, I hope everybody, listened to it and got to hear my opinion and form your own. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll be back tomorrow, probably with David, as our Wednesday show goes. And hopefully we talk about something fun. I'll talk to everybody later. So long, y'all.